The Ready to Learn Learning Triangle is a teaching tool. It addresses various learning styles and engages different senses. This workshop is based on these principles: view, read, and do.
But we're going to talk about nursery rhymes. I'm going to tell you a story about why I actually created this workshop and why I teach it. It is one of my most favorite ones to teach because we really show how nursery rhymes are very educational. Years ago, I was teaching up in a high school, and I just mentioned in passing, make sure you do nursery rhymes with your children. And one young lady raised her hand and she said, "I will never do nursery rhymes with my kids." And I just sort of stopped and paused, and I looked at her and I said, "Well, why?" And she says, "Well, don't you know about Ring Around the Rosies?" Does anyone know the history of Ring Around the Rosies? Mary?
I've heard that it's from the bubonic plague. The ring was around this rose-colored patch of skin before the person would die. Ashes, ashes. You'd have to burn the bodies to help keep the disease from spreading.
Okay, and she said, "Why would I want to teach my children about death and misery?" And I thought of all the times I'd played Ring Around the Rosies with my children and my grandchildren, and it was fun. Now, we're going to pause here, and Mary was right. The nursery rhymes actually gave an oral history of what happened in the past. Isn't that interesting? With Ring Around the Rosies, a pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down, we're able to learn about other histories. Years ago, we didn't have television, internet, telephones where we could Twitter and Facebook about what's going on halfway across the world. We had to have an oral history. And so most nursery rhymes do have an oral history. And I think it's interesting is, could you imagine having to describe your life in 4 lines? And what happened, the most important events of your life? You know, it just sort of depends on the day with me, what I talked about, but being able to remember that. And so nursery rhymes are a history. And one thing that as I was studying nursery rhymes, I came across a study, and it really struck me, and I'm going to share the findings of this. This was done by Moronto Publishing, and Tony Steed said that in 1945, an average school-age child had a vocabulary of about 10,000 words. Now I'm thinking an average school-age child would be a 3rd, 4th grader, okay? 10,000 words. He compared the same age of children in the year 2000, okay? And he defined that their vocabulary was, do you think it was higher or lower, Liz? Just a guess.
You'd think higher, but we don't talk as much as we used to.
Okay,
sure.
All right. And so you're going to die, or not die, you're going to be very surprised as I was when I saw this figure. Instead of 10,000 words, 2,500, 75% reduction. That's incredible. I mean, think of your paychecks, 75. And not very many years, we've seen a decline in a child's just vocabulary. In the study, he goes on to say that nursery rhymes are the bread and butter of literacy. Any ideas what that means? Any idea what bread and butter means of literacy? The bread and butter of literacy means the very basics, the very basics. He goes on, and I want you to listen to this quote. He said, "Listening comprehension precedes reading comprehension. For a child to ever learn to read, they need to hear those sounds and hear those stories before they can learn to read." And so as we're doing nursery rhymes, they actually are educational. Yes, they're a lot of fun. And as you do them with your children, they bond you to your children, but they're also educational. And so today we're going to take how they're educational, how they teach children, and how you can use them in your home to actually make sure your children are ready so they can read. Okay, how are nursery rhymes educational? The first way is they're memorable. Once you learn them, you don't usually forget them. In fact, we have just right here some bubblegum in a dish. How many pieces
Do
you wish? Liz, did you ever use that as a little girl?
I think in school we did.
Okay, what did you use it for?
I couldn't remember.
Okay. Jump rope. Okay. Pam, did you ever use this in school? Never heard this. So you're learning a new one today. I learned it to jump rope. And so every time we would make a skip on our jump rope, that was one piece of bubble gum. Some people, any of you ever use it to pick teams, where they would actually pick teams? Okay, Allison would use it to pick teams. And so when's the last time that you jump roped? It's been a lot of years for me, and I wouldn't be singing, I would be huffing and puffing if I was doing that. But once you learn them, you don't forget them. Okay, Liz, I'm gonna pick on you. Can you think of a nursery rhyme that you do with your son Leo, or that you've done?
He knows basically all of them, but Little Miss Muffet.
Okay, sat on her tuffet, eating her curds and whey. What's a curd and whey? Is it cottage cheese? Is it
Oat milk.
old milk?
It's similar to cottage cheese.
Okay.
The curds are little chunks of milk, and the whey is the milky water left
Okay.
behind.
All right. So does nursery rhymes teach vocabulary? Yes, they do. New concepts. Okay, Mary, think of a nursery rhyme for us.
We love to do the Incy Wincy Spider. It's fun with my little children, their small hands, as they try to get this little action down. And
Fine motor skills. Okay. Pam, what's one that you have done?
Well, mine's a little more ancient, I suppose. It's ride a cock horse to Cranberry Cross to see a fine lady upon a white horse. Rings on her fingers and bells on her toes. She shall have music wherever she goes.
Okay. Now, when's the last time you said that?
Last week,
Last week, too?
one of my grandchildren.
Okay. Do you put them on your lap and sort of bop them while
He
you
was
do that?
actually just standing in front of me, and we were talking about musical instruments.
Okay.
And so,
If any of you speak a second language, make sure that your children know the nursery rhymes from your second language. They're a little bit different. Some of them are very similar, but make sure they know them. Now we're going to go on and we're going to talk about how nursery rhymes, remember that quote that listening comprehension precedes reading comprehension. We're going to talk about the phonetic, how that helps children learn those words. So remember, they're memorable. I want you to all start thinking of a couple that you can share with the rest of us in just a moment. Children learn to talk by listening, and nursery rhymes provide a great opportunity for them to listen to different sounds. How many of you have done the wheels on the bus with your own kids or other people's children? We say that a million times. They teach what we call the phonies, or the smallest sound of the English language, or any sound is a phony. Now, if the smallest sound for R in the English language is okay? Anyone know Spanish? Anyone know Spanish? How we say the R, they roll that R. And I can't do it because I didn't grow up listening to it, so I don't know how to do it. And so every word that we speak has the smallest sound. Now, if we had a CH, that would be cha for that sound. Now, I want you to think of the wheels on the bus. And what I want you to do is I want you to put your fingers right here on your lips, and we're all going to do it so we don't look silly. And we're going to just say the wheels on the bus. The wheels on the bus go round and round. The wipers. The wipers on the bus go swish, swish, swish. The driver. The driver on the bus goes move on back. Every time your mouth moves, you're saying a different sound. Now, most of us don't walk around saying the wheels on the bus or the driver on the bus. We do when we say that, but when we do nursery rhymes, we're introducing language that they don't usually listen to, okay? And so that's the one thing, is they teach phonetic awareness. Now, one of my favorite books that you can memorize just like the wheels on the bus is called My Crayons Talk. Now, in here, there's a little chorus that says, talk, talk, my crayons talk, yakety clackety talk, talk, talk. Say that with me. Talk, talk, my crayons talk, Yakety, clackety, talk, talk, talk. Get your mouth moving a lot? Those are little sounds that as your child hears them, they'll start to be able to say them. I love this book. I love the colors. I love when your child goes, I don't know what to color. You go, oh, what's your color saying? Talk, talk, my crayons talk. Yakety, clackety, talk, talk, talk. Now, when we come to that part, I want you to say it with me because kids can memorize that very easy. Purple shouts, yum! Bubble gum. Brown sings, play. Mud pie day. Blue calls, sky. Oh, swing so high. Yellow chirps, quick, baby check. Talk, talk, my crayons talk. Yakety, clackety, talk, talk, talk. Gold brags, fine, dress up time. Silver toots, grand marching band. Red roars, no, don't go. Green yells, fun, watch me run. Talk, talk, my crayons talk.
Yakety, clackety, talk, talk, talk.
Orange asks, sweet, may I eat? Ooh, black hoots, wise, big owl eyes. White screams, most scary ghost. Pink laughs, clowns, pants fall down. Talk, talk, my crayons talk. Yakety, clackety, talk, talk, talk. Your mouth moving a lot? Finding books like that you can memorize. If I said purple shouts, yum, bubble gum, all you have to think is the color and you can do it. Those kind of stories, those kind of nursery rhymes, they teach those phonetics. Now, when a baby starts to talk, what are some of the first sounds that they say, Liz, with Leo? What were some of his first sounds?
Da and ba.
Okay, very, very familiar. Da, da, ma, ma, all those phonetic sounds. Now, if you're speaking two languages, they'll say them both. They'll mix them up until about first or second grade, and then they'll start to separate them. But they'll be able to learn both of them at the exact same time. So if you know two languages, teach it to them now. Okay, another thing, as you've noticed, when I was reading that book, I sort of did it that sing-songy way. Another thing nursery rhymes do is they teach the way our language flows. My son speaks a second language, and when he speaks it, I only can catch a few words, but the way he says it, I sort of get what he's talking about. Is he talking about me? Is he asking something for me? Now, I'm going to share a nursery rhyme that my daughter did that taught how the English language flows. We've got a question, an explanation, and a statement. And let's see, that's about the only way that we use language, and see if this nursery rhymes does that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once I caught a fish alive. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then I let him go again. Why did you let him go? Because he bit my finger so. Which finger did he bite? This little finger on the right. Was there a question? Mary, what question? Can you think of it?
Why did you let him go?
Why did you let him go? Was there an explanation? Pam?
Because he bit my finger.
Because he bit my finger so. Okay, right there in just very few simple lines, we see how English language flows. Can you already see how nursery rhymes are educational? Especially for the very youngest child. They teach the very basics of language. And the more you do them, the more familiar with them you are, the more sounds you're going to make and the more sounds they're going to know so they can start talking to you. Okay, the next thing that nursery rhymes really teach is story comprehension. In school, we learn that a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And a nursery rhymes has that in a very short amount of time. Most 2-year-olds, 1-year-olds have an attention span of less than about 10 seconds. And so you need to have those nursery rhymes memorized. But they tell a story. They have that beginning, the middle, and an end in a very short amount of time. They tell that full story. The children can know it and they understand it. It's one of the critical things in school that they teach. What happened first, then what happened. And so as we introduce these very short stories to children, they'll able to, as they get older, recognize story comprehension and another thing. Now, we've been talking about nursery rhymes and how does television incorporate that. Two of my children learned a lot of their nursery rhymes by watching PBS, especially Barney. They would learn those and actually teach them to me, and then I would have to go find them and learn them myself. But a lot of the PBS shows, like Teletubbies, they'll teach those very basic nursery rhymes. Now, most nursery rhymes are under 13 seconds long. Isn't that interesting? They're under 13 seconds long. I am going to read one, and I need someone to actually have it marked. I want someone to time me and see if you hear some different phonetics that you wouldn't hear, because we've talked about that. Time me, see if it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and see if I use some expressions so you can hear the English language. Okay, Diana's got her watch on. I see her back there. Little boy blue. Little boy blue, come blow your horn. The sheep's in the meadow, the cow's in the corn. Where is the boy that looks after the sheep? Well, he's under a haystack fast asleep. Will you wake him? No, not I. For if I do, he'll surely cry.
That was 13 right on.
13. For those of you that don't have children yet, memorize these nursery rhymes. Have them ready and available so you'll know them. Once again, if you're from a different culture, find out the ones that you used to have and teach those too, because they do teach story comprehension. Okay, so as you're looking at it, can you see, wow, they teach language, they teach story comprehension. What can come next? As we continue with nursery rhymes, we can see that they also do something very easily. In fact, I do it with my hands all the time. It's called dramatic play. When we act something out. When Mary was talking about her children doing the Eensy Beensy Spider or patty cake, a lot of those nursery rhymes have where we're acting something out. Most children will do the patty cake or the actions before they actually can say the words. But you know that story comprehension's right there because they do that. In fact, the Twinkle, twinkle, the Incy Beatsy Spider and the sun came up, you know, and if you don't do that part, wait, what's happening? Now, when I've worked with young children, the one thing I've learned is you always have a comment king or a comment queen. They know all the answers, they know them first, they know they're going to tell them. And the one thing I like about dramatic play, especially when you're working with a group of children, is that you can sometimes temper that. You can have that person just act out the story where somebody else becomes the narrator. Or you could have a choral reading where everyone talks at the same time. Or you could actually have parts where one person talks and then the next and the next, so everyone will get a turn. One thing you'll find, as I have working with young children, is sometimes all it takes is having a puppet for that very shy child to actually want to participate. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give you guys a puppet, and this first group, you are going to be everyone has a part. So I'm going to give you a puppet, and I want you to come up with a nursery rhyme that you already know. Okay, you're not making up a nursery rhyme. And each of you are going to give a line because each of you are going to take a part in that. Okay, now this next group, I'm going to have them do a narration. And so Mary is going to narrate it while Rachel and Teresa actually act it out, okay? So you guys don't say anything, but you're important because you have to be our actors while you're our voice. I hope you guys have all come up with something on your own. We're going to start with our first group, and this is sort of the hardest because they're each just doing one line or one section because they're taking turns.
Right. Two little speckled frogs sitting on a spotted log, eating the most delicious bugs. Yum, yum. One jumped into the pool where it was nice and cool. Now there's only one speckled frog.
Glub, glub.
One little speckled frog sitting on a speckled log, eating the most delicious bug. Yum, yum. He jumped into the pool where it is nice and cool. Now there are no more speckled frogs.
Glub, glub.
Okay, perfect. Was that a little hard? It's hard to do it by yourself. Did the puppets help?
Yes.
Yeah, it does help a little bit to have those puppets. It really does. Okay, we're going to move to our next group. Okay.
Two little ducks went out to play over the hills and far away. When Mother Duck said quack, 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 one little duck came running back. I don't remember the rest, I'm sorry.
One little duck went out to play
Over the hills and far away. When Daddy Duck said quack, 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 two little ducks came running back.
Perfect. Okay. It's a lot easier when you have someone else helping, isn't it? Now, when you're doing this with your kids, it takes some practice because they're going to want to always be in charge, or there's somebody that's not going to ever want to. Take those turns. Now, in front of you, you have the makings of a puppet. Now, at my house, we always have those lonesome socks, and socks become great puppets. And with this, you're going to have a puppet that you're going to make a caterpillar. In fact, you're going to make two, and I'll tell you why in a second. So you're going to want to put your pom-poms on here, and these are going to be your caterpillar. Put them on both of them, so you'll have two puppets with two caterpillars, okay? And then on the inside, you're going to either put your butterflies or whatever little creature you have, insect on there. And this is a poem that's called a caterpillar. Now, what I like about this is that you can have your puppets, so when a child doesn't have the fine motor skills yet, they'll have both puppets that they need. As they get older and develop more gross and fine motor skills, they can turn it inside out, and your butterfly's right there. Okay, that's why we have two. Now, a child at a very young age, even a 2-year-old, an 18-month-old, can act this out. They might not be able to say the words, but they can act it out. So puppets, dramatic play, nursery rhymes. A caterpillar crawled to the top of a tree. I think I'll take a nap, said he. So under a leaf he did creep. He spun a cocoon, and he fell fast, fast asleep. For 9 long months he slept in his chrysalis bed, until spring came along and said, wake up, you sleepyhead. Look, out of the cocoon he did fly. Look, I've become a butterfly. Very, very simple. You can puppets. Sock puppets are some of the easiest you can make for dramatic play. A child can act them out before they can say them. Remember that listening comprehension precedes the reading comprehension, and when they understand that story, dramatic play, you can tell, oh, they're understanding it. Now, just to end, I have quite a few books up here that actually have that dramatic play. Our first group did the 5 green speckled frogs. We've got 5 little ducks went out to play. You can find these books and read them to your children. Then they'll be able to start acting them out. But the 5 little monkeys jumping on a bed, all those are really just dramatic play. Nursery rhymes not educational. They have a lot of skills that they can teach children, don't they? Okay, who would have thought nursery rhymes teach math? It's interesting that there's so many math objects that we learn from nursery rhymes. 5 little monkeys jumping on a bed. One fell off and bumped his head. Mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more monkeys jumping on a bed. 4, 3, 2, 1, none. That's subtraction. Most children can sing that song backwards and forwards, but if you said to them, hey, can you subtract, if we had 5 monkeys and we'd had one fall off, how many would we have left? They wouldn't know. The song is a song to a child or a rhyme for a child until they get older and start being introduced to those math skills, and then they can bridge those together. But at first, they're just a lot of fun. But the one thing that nursery rhymes teach, from the very, very rhythm of the sound to a lot of the patterns of the nursery rhymes, is that rhythm and the patterns. And we know that math is learned from patterns. That's the very, very start of math, is patterns. 1, 2, 1, 2. It's a pattern. It starts that what comes next, okay? Now, as you're doing that with the different patterns that you use, a lot of them is who stole the cookie from the cookie cookie jar, a lot of that rhythm. Isn't it interesting that also a lot of nursery rhymes, they do the Ba ba black sheep, have ye any wool? Yes sir, 3 bags full. 1 for my master, 1 for my dame, 1 for the little girl that lives down the lane. They have a lot of different measuring and those type of things. And so they teach the very, very basic math. Now, once again, don't think that your child is going to learn them as you say them. They act as a bridge, so when they start to learn them, they start to understand, oh yeah, I remember that song about 5 little ducks, and then that subtraction comes very clearly to them. So we've talked about how nursery rhymes are very educational, and you can see that they're more than just, you know, silly little songs that you do to keep your kids entertained, that really they have a purpose as they go. The last thing we're going to talk about is that nursery rhymes are bonding. But before we start that, I just want to give you a quote, but everyone has to make a Scout's honor that they don't go home and count how many nursery rhymes their children has. Studies say that if a child knows 8 nursery rhymes by the time they're 4, they're usually among the best readers when they enter school. That's how important they are. You can't go home, start counting nursery rhymes, but you can go home and start doing nursery rhymes with your children. And as they're doing that, you can make sure that you are preparing them so that they'll be ready to read when they go to school and learn those things. So isn't that interesting? 8 nursery rhymes by the time they're 4 years old. I know that when my daughter went in for her screening for kindergarten, her kindergarten teacher asked her to recite some of her nursery rhymes, and she said, I don't know any. And I'm thinking, what? You don't know? I'm in the hall, you know, trying to give her little coaches. And as we got back in the car, I started saying, you know, Jack and Jill and different ones, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And she would finish them for me, and I'd say, what are those? And she said, oh, those are fun. So as we teach them to our children, we might, you know, want to preface it, oh, this is a fun nursery rhyme, because that is one of the screenings that they will do when they go into kindergarten, is see how many nursery rhymes they know, so they can know where they're going to be in a literacy set. As we end this workshop about nursery rhymes, my favorite part about this whole thing is that they bond us together. You know, all those educational things we talked about, the phonetics, the story comprehension, the math skills, the dramatic play, probably the most important thing is that they bond us to who we are. How many can remember nursery rhymes that they did with their grandmother? I do. Or the lullabies that they sang to us, and they make us feel like we're connected. I know as a preschool teacher years ago when I taught preschool, one of the things that I would ask the parents is to give me a favorite rhyme or a favorite story the child had, because if they were having a bad day, I would just start repeating it and say, you know what, I love this one. Do you love this one? And all of a sudden they felt a little more at ease. One that I'm going to share with you, a story that I'm going to share with you, is a favorite. It's not a nursery rhyme, but it's a song, is that You Are My Sunshine. And I know most of you have heard this song, but it's one that I have sung to all of my children as they've come, and at night when I'd be rocking them to sleep, I would sing You Are My Sunshine to them. And you know, it just became their song that we would put their name in. And a story that I want to tell you about how bonding nursery rhymes or these lullabies or these songs can be is when my youngest daughter was just a teeny tiny little baby. My oldest son brought his future wife home. Now, years later, they got married, but at the time, she walked in the house and here I was rocking our baby, and she looked at me and she said, "That's my song." I said, well, it's a pretty popular song. She goes, no, that's my song. My mom sings that to me all the time. And she said, and she paused for a minute. Now I want you to think of any of you that have teenagers. Most of you don't, so you don't experience this quite yet. But she said, you know what happens when my mom and I get in an argument? And I'm thinking, you take away the car, you take away the cell phone, all those kind of things that we're thinking of is, yeah, I know arguments with teenagers. And she said, my mom comes up to my room at night. She rubs my back and she sings me this song. And I just thought, wow, what a way to tell our kids we love them. You know, all those other ways might not be as effective as, hey, I love you. You still are my sunshine. We might not see eye to eye. And then to end it, she said, you know what? When I have kids, that's going to be my song to him. And so I want you to think of those nursery rhymes. They can be silly, they can be fun, they can be tender, but they also can be those that they're just yours. Even though they're universal, they can be what bond us together. And that as our children grow and leave, we can pass those on, just as we talked about the tradition of Ring Around the Rosies, that our tradition, the things that we're passing on, are songs and nursery rhymes and finger plays that we've done with our children that help bind us, not as even just as a family, but sometimes as a culture. And it's really interesting that nursery rhymes have such a positive effect in so many different areas. But I hope that this bonding one, you find one that's just going to be yours and your kids, no matter what it is, and it will be just your special one.